Welcome to Fighting Stats, the ultimate channel for UFC fans who love statistics and betting breakdowns. I'm your host, Art C, and today I'll be getting you ready for the upcoming UFC fight. Here at FightingStats.com, we have exclusive UFC stats not available anywhere else. We can tell you how often a fighter throws that left hook or that right jab in southpaw, how often they move backwards, or how often they throw kicks. We have all of that information, but that is not all. In this series, I'll be watching tape and I'll give you my real-time analysis on how the fight's going to go. I'm going to watch for fighter strengths, weaknesses, tendencies, and overall strategies to give you my prediction on how I think the fight is going to go and ultimately who's going to win. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Welcome to Fighting Stats. Welcome back to Fighting Stats. I'm your host, Art C, and today we are breaking down the UFC 302 main event between current champion Islam Makhachev and Dustin Poirier. This fight going down at, again, UFC 302, Islam Makhachev, the current lightweight champion. So what we're going to do is we're going to break down the numbers. We're going to tell you what all the stats say, how the fight's probably going to go. I'll give you my prediction on how I think the fight's going to go, and then we'll go into the the numbers, the best bets, the value bets, where the numbers lie, and then we'll get you a best bet at the end of this. So you won't want to miss it. So let's stick around here. So let's start here with Islam Makhachev on the blue side. We're going to do Dustin Poirier on the red side. This is the Fighting Stats tail of the tape here. So in terms of the physicals, Islam Makhachev just going to be a couple of years younger, going to have 1 inch of height. Looks like Poirier going to have 1 inch of reach advantage. Both fighters standing a southpaw there. Islam Makhachev in the UFC has 13-1 in the UFC. 15% of his wins coming from KO. That last one against Volkanovski, head kick KO. 46% of his wins by submission and 38% by decision. He does have one loss, and that was lost by KO as well. Whereas Dustin Poirier, 21-7. So definitely a lot of UFC experience. 43% of his wins coming from KO. 19% of his wins from submission and 29% from decision. 7 losses, 43% by KO, 43% by submission, and 14% by decision there. So let's get right into the Islam Makhachev offensive striking. Now I do have to update some of the stats. They don't have that last fight there against Volkanovski, but that was only a one-round fight. But overall, you can see here, distance striking, 52% of the strikes landed for Makhachev going to be at a distance, 20% in the clinch, and 28% of his strikes landed on the ground, whereas his target breakdown, 79% of his strikes towards the head, 18 towards the body, and not a big leg kicker, only 3% leg kick target there. In terms of striking accuracy, 51% head accuracy, 90% body strike accuracy, and 88% leg kick accuracy there. In terms of average strikes thrown by round, not a ton of volume there. 17 strikes thrown in round number 1, 21 in round number 2, 15 in round number 3, and then drops to 10 and then 16. In terms of strikes landed, only 10, 12, 11, 10, and 8 in terms of strikes landed per round. So roughly about 10 to 11 strikes landed per round. Again, a lot of his strikes, 28% of his strikes going to be on the ground, so that's probably why some of those numbers are a little bit lower. And he does have 3 career knockdowns, one coming in one coming in round number 2, and one coming in round number 3. You can see his target breakdown by round there, 6 in terms of head strikes, 6, 9, 8, 5, and 6. So roughly around 5 to 6 to 7 head strikes per round there for Islam Makhachev. So overall, we talked about the knockdowns, 3 career knockdowns in his UFC career, overall 60% strike accuracy. Going to be at a distance, 52% we talked about. And then, yeah, look at these leg kick numbers. Volkanovski in that first fight, only 3 of 3 landed in that fight. Oliveira, against Bobby Green, he landed 2 of 3. Thiago Moises landed 2 of 2. So really not a big leg kicker, not going to be really a problem for Poirier here. Look at some of these ground strikes as well. 9 of 20 against Bobby Green. That one was a TKO finish. Against Charles Oliveira, only landing 4 of 5. Moises landing 8 of 13 on the ground there. So not a big ground and pounder, even against Davi Ramos. No strikes in rounds 1 and 2, only 11 of 18 in terms of ground strikes against Davi Ramos there. Nick Lance, Armin Sarukian, only 1 of 1, a lot of scrambling there. Sorry, 2 ground strikes there. So pretty interesting in terms of ground strikes number, and we'll get into it why it's relevant in a bit. In terms of defensive striking here, defensive striking, 71% of the strikes are going to be at a distance, 19% going to be at a clinch, and 10% of the strikes are going to be on the ground. 63% target against is going to be towards the head, 26% of the strikes absorbed towards the body, and 11% towards the legs. Defensive striking accuracy, so pretty good at 26% strike accuracy towards the head, 54 towards the body, and 73 towards the legs. In terms of strikes absorbed by round, pretty low here at 5 in round number 1, 6 in round number 2, drops down to 4 in round number 3, 5 in round number 4, and then spikes up to 20 in round number 5. I think that's just an anomaly. That was the Volkanovski fight that he had a bunch of strikes in that round number 5 there. So in terms of strikes absorbed, yeah, like look at these head strikes per round on average, only absorbing 1.4 head strikes in round number 1, 3 head strikes in round number 2, 2 in round number 3, and 3 in round number 4. So going to be very difficult to finish somebody when you're only absorbing 2.5, 3 strikes per round there. So pretty good numbers there in terms of defensive striking. He has been knocked down twice, though, in his UFC career. Let's see. One was against Adriano Martins in 2015, where he got dropped, and then one was in round 5 against Volkanovski in that first time they fought. So 2 times he's been knocked down, so he is vulnerable, but not too often there. So let's get into Dustin Poirier offensive striking. He's going to be a southpaw. 75% of his strikes landed going to be at a distance, 15% in the clinch, and 10% on the ground. Whereas his target breakdown, a big headhunter at 87% of his target strikes towards the head, 7% towards the body, and 7% towards the leg. He is a decent leg kicker, but doesn't throw too much volume. We'll get into that in just a bit. In terms of striking accuracy, pretty good. 47% head strike accuracy, 72% body strike accuracy, and 82% leg strike accuracy. And quite a contrast here in terms of the strikes thrown by round. 57 strikes thrown on average in round number 1, 45 in round number 2, 32 in round number 3, and landing about 28, 24, and 16 strikes in total in those rounds 1, 2, and 3. And then rounds 4 and 5 does spike up a little bit in terms of 20 strikes landed and 32 in round number 5. So definitely his best round for Dustin Poirier is round number 5. So worth noting, not a ton of round 5s. Really just the Dan Hooker fight, Max Holloway fight, round 5. Justin Gaethje only went to round 4. So only three rounds here with a ton of volume, guys. So makes sense that he got to round 5, big volume numbers against Hooker and Holloway there. Overall, he does have a bunch of knockdowns in his UFC career. He has 10 knockdowns in round number 1, 3 of them in round number 2, and then in rounds 3, 4, and 5, no knockdowns at all. So in total, 13 knockdowns in his UFC career. Again, most of them coming in round number 1. Poirier defensive striking, 79% of his strikes absorbed going to be at a distance, 12% in the clinch, 9% on the ground, whereas his target breakdown against 79% of the strikes absorbed going to be towards the head, 14 towards the body, and 8% towards the legs. Defensive striking accuracy, pretty average, I would say. 38% head strike accuracy, 72 towards the body, and 83% towards the legs. In terms of strikes absorbed by rounds, looks to be about 20 strikes absorbed in round number 1, 19 in round number 2, 17 in round number 3, 16 in round number 4, and then it spikes up a little bit in round number 5. Again, the round 5 sample size, a little bit small, only 2 fights there, but looks to be a little bit better as the fight goes on. He absorbs less and less strikes, sees less strikes as well. He does have a way of pushing a pace, so understandable there. A couple of his opponents probably slow down there. He has been knocked down 3 times in his UFC career, a long, lengthy UFC career, so only 3 knockdowns, pretty good in terms of how long he's been fighting. He's been fighting since 2011, only been knocked down 3 times. One was against Conor McGregor in 2014, one was against Michael Johnson in 2016, and then I think recently, his most recent was against Justin Gaethje. He got head kicked there, so Pretty good striking numbers overall. Let's go into the detailed grappling. Obviously, it's an Islam Makhachev fight. The grappling numbers are going to be important. Let's look at some of these numbers here. It's just the efficiency, I think, from the grappling here. So Islam Makhachev, on average, only averages 1.5 takedowns in round number 1 attempted, but he's successful one of them in round number 1. Whereas round number 2, 1.2 attempted, 0.7 successful in round number 2, and round number 3, 1.9 attempted, 1.3 successful. So almost always the success rate pretty high in terms of if you're attempting 1.5 and you're getting one of them, it's pretty good success rate. Average subs, looks like most of his reversals coming in round number 3. Sub attempts 0.4 in round number 1, 0.2 in round number 2. 0.1 in round number 3, and then spikes up a little bit in round number 4. So looks like if he is going to get a sub, most of his sub attempts going to be round number 1, drops off in rounds 2 and 3, and then spikes up a little bit in round number 4. Does not have a sub attempt in round number 5, worth noting. Control time by round looks pretty good there. So yeah, look at these control time here. So I'm going to go through some of the numbers here. Again, overall in his UFC career, he's attempted 50 takedowns on total. 31 of them have been successful. Look at some of these control numbers here. 124 seconds of control against Volkanovski in round 1. 57 in round number 2. 35 in round number 3. Goes up to 205 in round number 4 and only 36 there. Against somebody dangerous like Charles Oliveira, 228 seconds in round number 1, 77 seconds in round number 2. Bobby Green, 117 seconds. Dan Hooker, 108. So definitely high control time given to Islam Makhachev there, right? So definitely something that we want to consider. Defensive grappling, we're not going to go into it too much. I really don't think that Poirier is going to be looking for the takedowns. Overall, in his UFC career, Islam Makhachev has seen 22 takedowns attempted. 2 of them have been successful. One of them was against Thiago Moises, and I think one was against Arman Tsarukyan, getting a takedown there as well. So Dustin Poirier, again, offensive grappling, not going to go too much into it. He has 28 takedowns in his UFC career, over 76 attempts. Just, I don't think he wants to get down to the ground with Makhachev, so I'm not going to go into those numbers. Defensive grappling is where we are interested in. He has seen 69 takedown attempts in his UFC career. Only 26 of them have been successful, so decent numbers here. Let's go into just a little bit of the details here. We watched the Justin Gaethje fight. We watched the Chandler fight. Go back and watch the Chandler. Chandler going 2 for 4 in takedowns in round number 1. 65 seconds of control time. Round number 2 was the big one here. We went 1 for 1 early in that round number 2, getting 274 seconds of control time. Again, each round is only 300 seconds, so a decent chunk there. Chandler going 0-2 in round number 3. Charles Oliveira did not get any takedowns on Poirier, but he doesn't have the wrestling that Makhachev does. Connor's not going to shoot any takedowns. Dan Hooker's not really a grappler. Dan Hooker did get 4 takedowns on 9 attempts. Khabib is the one. He went 7 of 8 in takedowns, so just goes to show you the amount of control. Somebody comparable, they talk about how Islam is actually better than Khabib. So Khabib goes 7 of 8 in takedowns, 3 in round 1, 3 in round 2, 1 in round number 3, getting 219 seconds of control in round number 1, 222 in round number 2, and 91 seconds in round number 3 there. So those are probably the most comparable numbers that you can look at. Everything else, Max Holloway, Eddie Alvarez, Justin Gaethje, Anthony Pettis, Eddie Alvarez, Jim Miller, Michael Johnson, Bobby Green. None of these guys are really grapplers, right? Joe Duffy, Yancy Medeiros, Diego Ferreira. Like, this is going back and back and back. Poirier has had a decent run of non-grapplers. He did run into Khabib, obviously just destroyed him. And then Dan Hooker, Conor McGregor, Charles Oliveira. Obviously, Oliveira is a good grappler, but he's not a great wrestler, right? So in terms of the high-level wrestlers, really only Khabib on this list. I don't see any other notable names that you would really have to make, really have to watch for. Akira Kurosani, that's going back. Chang Sun Jung went 4 rounds there. Went 4 for 4 in takedowns there. So any kind of decent to average wrestler is getting Poirier down. And we talked about in the breakdown, and I'll go into the breakdown in terms of what he does there. But 69 of 26 takedowns allowed against a lot of these strikers. So on paper, it looks like good takedown defense, but if you take a look at who they're coming against, not the best there. So those are what the numbers say. It looks like I'll give you my prediction on how I think the fight is going to go, and it does come down to some of the grappling. Obviously, for Islam Makhachev, it's going to be somewhat of a striker versus grappler type matchup. So I think both fighters are going to open up southpaw, right? They're going to come out southpaw. We saw Dustin Poirier. He likes fighting southpaws. He has a really good outside low kick, so I think he's going to throw the outside low kick quite a bit. We saw him against. Poirier fight Conor McGregor twice, right? And in that first fight, he went to the legs quite a bit. Conor McGregor adjusting in that second fight and checking a lot of the leg kicks from Poirier. Poirier fought again, another one. Well, Chandler was back and forth between Orthodox and Southpaw. But again, leg kick numbers here for Dustin Poirier, 2 of 2 against Justin Gaethje. Chandler 1 of 1. Not huge leg kicks. Only McGregor were really landing 1, 9, and 9 in terms of leg kicks for Dustin Poirier. There, so interesting numbers there. So I do think he goes to the outside low kick a little bit of time here against Makhachev. He won't want to go high or to the body with the kicks because you're basically giving Makhachev a free takedown if you continue to throw these kicks. So he might have to stay low with the kicks if he throws any kicks at all. Even if he throws low, Makhachev does have the ability of grabbing the kick, taking him down from the kick there. So you got to be very careful with the kicks thrown by Poirier because, again, Makhachev wants to get you down to the ground. So low kicks, it's going to be one-sided. I don't think Makhachev throws really any low kicks. They're going to show up on stats, maybe 1, 2, or 3, but they're not going to really do any damage. So again, Poirier is going to have the leg kick numbers, if anything. In terms of strikes, Poirier has some very good striking and some decent striking defense. He has taken some big shots, right, and he's eaten some big shots, but seems to be able to weather the storm. Some big shots from Chandler, big shots from McGregor there. And we saw in that last fight, Makhachev actually landing a head kick on Volkanovski. That was really the only time. He has 3 knockdowns. He did knock down Charles Oliveira, knocked down Davi Ramos, and knocked down Gleison Tebow. But overall, not a ton of power in Makhachev's hands. He relied on a head kick that had to wobble Volkanovski there. So on the feet, obviously, I'm going to give the striking edge to Dustin Poirier. I think his striking tendency is a little bit better. He has a very good 1, 2, 3. Has a decent check right hook, right from southpaw. He sort of baits you into throwing. He can throw a right hook there, nice uppercuts. And he does do a good job of baiting, not baiting, but like he keeps a high guard, block, and he'll come back with a right hand counter. We saw that in Chandler. He dropped Chandler with that, right? So the only thing is if he puts a high guard against somebody like Makhachev, Makhachev's not going to stand there and throw punches up against the fence. He's going to double leg right away and get you down to the ground. So that's where I see the biggest difference in this fight. And I do have to be cautious because Dustin Poirier in that last fight fought Benoit Saint Denis, and Benoit Saint Denis is probably the best. Against Khabib, we talked about the wrestler, and then Benoit Saint Denis. That's why I was on the Saint Denis side. I thought that Poirier had not really fought a decent grappler there. He's given up some big numbers to strikers here, and the biggest name is Khabib. I think that BSD, his grappling is high level as well. He thinks she should be able to control him, and he did. You go back and watch that fight. BSD won round 1 through control. He got the takedown quite a bit. He got Dustin's back like we predicted. Dustin Poirier has a very, very bad tendency to give up his back every single fight against everybody. If you go back and watch any single Dustin Poirier fight, some way that he gets there, and he rather give up his back on the takedown, then defend the hook, stand back up, use turtle guard to defend but it's part of his getup. It's part of his system getup, how he breaks down, he gets back up, he allows people to take his back. Chandler got his back a couple of times. I think in round number 3, if Chandler was able to stay on the back, he probably wins that fight, but Poirier does a good job of defending the hook, not letting the hook get in there and actually winning that fight after he reverses the back take. But yeah, every single fight that we see Poirier in, he's giving up his back. So I'm going to assume that's the case here. I'm going to say that they open up southpaw. Poirier, throws a couple of strikes. He can't overcommit on anything because he knows that the takedown attempt from Makhachev is coming. Makhachev may shoot for a takedown. Poirier may be able to defend, but historically, even if you defend it, Makhachev is going to push you up against the fence like he did against Volkanovski. And Makhachev has some really good outside trips, inside trips. So he's going to push you up against the cage. As soon as you go to throw a knee to the body like he did against Chandler, Poirier went to the knees in the clinch. Very good knees. But as soon as you do that, he's going to throw you off balance. He's going to get you down to the ground. And then he's going to work some ground and pound. He's going to break you down. Islam Makhachev on top. At some point, Poirier is going to open up the guard, maybe try to get up and give up his back. We did see in the BSD fight, he was a little bit content with being on his back, close guard, really trying to limit some of the damage that he took. Same thing against Chandler there, right? But eventually he's going to give up the back. He's going to fight off the choke. What he does is he does a good job of chucking his chin, does Dustin Poirier, 2-on-1, defends the choke, things like that. So for me, it comes down to a back and forth between couple of things. So I think Islam can win by ground and pound, just the way that, because it's difficult to submit him. But I think Poirier being so durable, being able to take so much damage, it's going to be the main event. The referee's going to be a little bit slower to stop this. I think it probably could come down to a sneaky submission from Islam. He does have to set it up quite nicely. Maybe it's an arm triangle. Maybe it's a rear naked. It's probably going to be a rear naked choke, if I'm being honest. Or it could be a decision. Decision would not surprise me. It would have to be Makhachev or Dustin Poirier defending a lot. Yeah, let's get into the numbers. I'll give you exact percentages in terms of how I see the fight going on. I've pulled up my handy-dandy bankroll tracker here. I've put Islam Makhachev in the blue side, Dustin Poirier on the red side here. So let's go through the numbers. I like to assign a percentage to each possible outcome, totaling 100%, and that will tell me, and I use 8 Kelly criterion to determine how much bankroll do I put on each bet and where the value line lies there. So Islam Makhachev to win by KO. I've seen Poirier take some big shots on the feet, really wobbled, very durable for Dustin Poirier. So if the TKO does come, it's probably going to be ground and pound, something similar to Bobby Green. He got Bobby Green, he took his back, Bobby Green gave up mount, back to back mount, back to front mount, and eventually Islam Makhachev got Bobby Green in back mount, had the hooks in, and then rather than try to fish for the submission, he just kept on throwing punches, eventually winning by TKO from back mount. So I definitely think that's possible here against Poirier. It depends on the referee, how fast they step in, how much leeway they give him. So I'm going to give him 15% to win by TKO. Just because ground and pound is not too common, and I think it probably comes by there. But Islam being able to strike now, throwing some head kicks now, man. Like we saw Justin Gaethje land a head kick on Poirier, so I'm not going to count a head kick out of there, but it's very unlikely, right? Dustin Poirier does have a bad habit of dipping. When he's striking, right, he dips a little bit. So if you time a head kick, you can definitely land a head kick on him. Southpaw versus southpaw going to be a little bit harder because it's not open to the high kick. It's going to have to come up over the shoulder, right? So it's very unlikely that it's going to be head kick southpaw to southpaw. So we'll leave it at 15%. We'll decide it from there. So Islam Makhachev to win by submission. I think it's very likely that it happens. It's probably his most likely path. We've seen Khabib win by submission. We saw BSD get moments there. It's just reliant on the cardio that Islam keeps that up. So my gut says 35%. We're gonna leave it there for now. We're gonna see what happens. We'll leave it at 35%. And Islam to win by decision. I think it's possible as well, but it's reliant on Dustin Poirier defending every single submission that Makhachev throws. He is very durable. He is a black belt on the ground as well, so it would not surprise me if Islam won a decision. I'm going to leave it at 20% for now. Dustin Poirier to win by TKO. I think it's live. I think it will come in the later rounds. It might have to be Islam slows down a little bit. Poirier takes over a little bit later. We saw that in terms of strikes landed. Round number 5 is his best round. So Dustin Poirier to win by TKO. I'll probably leave it at 15% as well. It's probably a little bit higher, but no, 15% sounds about right. Dustin Poirier to win by submission. Now, when they're fresh, I don't think it happens at all. You've seen him jump guillotine Dustin Poirier like 5 or 6 times in that Chandler fight, in that BSD fight actually. BSD had it to scramble, but he ended up on top every time. If you're going to do that against Islam Makhachev, probably very bad decision. You give Makhachev top control after you fail on the guillotine. Makhachev seems pretty confident that you're not going to get me in the guillotine. So I'm going to leave it at 5%, maybe 10% max, but I'm okay with 5% there. And then Poirier to win by decision. I'll leave it for the remaining 10%. I think it comes from if Poirier is going to win a decision, it's probably going to be damage over control. We've seen a lot of fights now where the judges don't really score top time and control time as much. They go to more damage. So it could be a case where Poirier is landing a little bit more on the feet, doing a little bit more damage. Islam gets the takedown, rides out top control, doesn't get the submission. But I doubt it. I think Islam probably wins 3 rounds, if not 4, if not 5. So that's why 10% sounds about right. So overall, I'll read you out the numbers. You tell me if it sounds right. Sounds a little bit low, but Islam Makhachev to win by KO is 15% plus 567 or better. Makhachev to win by submission, 35% plus 186 or better. Makhachev to win by decision, 20% plus 400 or better. For a total money line of 70% minus 233 or better. Islam inside the distance, 50% or plus 100 or better. Going over to the Poirier side, 15% to win by a KO, 5 plus 567 or better. Poirier to win by submission, 5% plus 1900 or better. And Poirier to win by decision, 10% plus 900 or better, for a total money line of 30% plus 233 or better. Poirier to win inside the distance, only 20% plus 400 or better. Judging by the line, if I saw Islam Makhachev minus 233, I would probably unload a lot of money on Islam Makhachev. So I think the number is a little bit lower than what it should be. I want to add to the sub a little bit. Let's go up to 40% on sub. I don't want to take away from KO. Dustin Poirier does have a chance of winning by KO, and we saw it in the BSD fight. He's live anytime the fight goes onto the feet. So it really depends on, is Islam going to control Poirier for all 5 rounds on the ground, or is he going to finish him? But if it goes onto the feet, you have to be, Poirier has to be live for a KO. I think Poirier, he's a black belt on the ground as well. It can't be 0% in terms of winning by submission. It's probably very unlikely. So I'll leave it at 5%, and then win by decision, that has to be 5 to 10% as well, right? So if I take, if I take 40% there, give him 5%, we go down. So I got Islam Makhachev at 75% or minus 300. Poirier 25% plus 300. Maybe a little bit closer than what I feel it should be. I think Islam probably wins about 80% of the time, if I'm being honest. But again, I thought BSD would win that as well. And he got destroyed. Well, he got destroyed in round number 2 after getting a staph infection. So BSD did slow down in round number 2. Otherwise, he was winning that fight. Looks like he was winning rounds 1 and 2 in that fight as well. So all that to say, I think I like the Islam Makhachev side. I'm going to find some numbers, some props to play. Let's see what the current line is, because I haven't been following it too close. This fight's still in a couple of weeks from now. So let's see here. Let's go down to the Makhachev Poirier at the end of the month. Islam minus 445. Poirier the plus 345. So 345 minus 445. All right, so you can see here, based on the current line, minus 445 for Islam, it's saying do not bet, minus 4.5 disadvantage. Whereas on the Poirier side, if you are going to play that side, it has 0.4 Kelly criterion. So if it's saying basically, if you like the Poirier side, risk about 0.4 units on the Poirier side at plus 345. For me, it's going to be favored or pass. I'm going to find some props to play, maybe get myself into the game. I like Islam. I think he's going to be a dominant champion. I think he's going to be champion for a while. His best chances of losing, I think, are Arman Tsarukyan again. That's probably going to be a rematch coming up. So I like Islam to win. Give me Islam to win. I think he probably finds a submission. I think it's going to be rear naked choke. Decision would not surprise me. But my official pick is going to be Islam by submission, rear naked choke. So that's where I think it's going to go. That's where I think the numbers tell me as well. Keep in mind, I did take Benoit Saint-Denis against Poirier, but I did take Islam against Volkanovski both times. So give me that side. I think it's going to win. Let me know in the comments below where my numbers are. If you agree with them, if you think something's completely off, let me know how I did. And we'll go from there. If I do place a bet, though, I'll post it over to patreon.com/FightingStats. There's where I put all of my breakdowns, my plays, my same-game parlays, my shoot-for-the-moon parlays. Everything is over there. See how we're doing there. So don't miss it. My name name is Art C, and this is Fighting Stats. I hope you enjoyed the show. Thanks for watching. All right, guys. Well, that is it for today. Thank you very much for watching. If you like this type of content, make sure you smash the like button, hit the subscribe. You'll get notified anytime we put out new content. Listen to this. We just hit a massive parlay for $29,000 at UFC 297. That is one UFC after 296 where we hit a parlay for $82,000. That's back-to-back parlays. We've made $110,000. And how do we do it? We use our exclusive fighting stats, not available anywhere else. Our exclusive fighting stats gives us information, gives us a big edge over the sportsbooks, and tell us what's going to happen within the fights. We post all that information, our breakdowns, our best bets, over at patreon.com/fightingstats. Don't miss out. Make sure you subscribe today. Again, my name is Art C. This is Fighting Stats. Thanks for watching.